so much. That's passed. Kia ora. So we move into our next item, and it is Kia ora tamaki makaurau Maori Outcomes Performance Measurement Framework. Nau mai, haere mai. Tēnā koutou, three. Tēnā koutou whānau. Simon, I just want to firstly acknowledge your role in ngā matarai. I understand there's a new journey ahead for you, so I'm passing on our committee's firstly congratulations on the mahi that you were in that position, and also wish you well in the journey ahead. So ngā mihi ki a koe, and again, just thank you so much. Tēnā koutou, if you could introduce our team, and Councillor Dalton, if you are willing to move this particular item. Ka pai, second. Oh, yep. Matua Kake will second this, and I'll then open up for discussion and comment. Kia ora nā.
O tēnā koutou I ngā rangatira, kia ora, Alf, thank you very much for your mihi, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou. Ko Simon Anderson, tōku ingoa. I have with me I mahi ana au, hey, GM of Māori Outcomes for a couple more days. I have with me Luann Ballantyne, our Head of Māori Strategic Outcomes, and also Richard Court, who is our Portfolio Manager. We're really pleased today to bring you Kia ora Tāmaki Makaurau for your approval, which I see we've gained, but this framework is named because it is a wellbeing framework, and ultimately this is a desired outcome from the Council Māori relationship. So this framework focuses the Council group on a consistent approach to achieving outcomes for, and more importantly with, Māori. Mana whenua and Māori communities are at the forefront of our performance measurement framework, and we must not take our eye off the aspirations outlined in the mana statements. So the Independent Māori Statutory Board's last treaty audit asked Council to give the highest priority to finalise and implement the performance measurement framework. So this is with the aim of supporting a more cohesive and effective monitoring. So Māori responsiveness plans are either being developed or updated to plug them directly into the framework, and this allows us to gather the necessary data and information on the framework measures and the wider actions of the MRPs for reporting against. So the framework was approved by this committee in August 2020, and we've now brought the measures back to you for that final approval. And I take this opportunity to thank you all and thank everyone across the group and our Māori partners for staying with us through this journey. Tēnā koutou katoa. I'll now hand you over to Luann and Richard, who will outline reporting on the measures and how we've embedded them across the group. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou katoa. So again, just to emphasise the work and the effort and the time that's gone into being here today to seek approval of Kia ora Tāmaki Makaurau. It's a significant milestone for Council and the Council group as a whole. So next slide, please. So in terms of landing where we have with the measures especially, you've already seen the framework in August 2020. So in terms of developing the measures, we had a few things we needed to keep in mind. One was making sure that the measures could be defined and measurable, that data was available, and there were supporting processes in place. So we do see this as being phase one. It is an evidence-based line. What we are looking for in phase two is actually to lift the reporting and the measures that we currently have, and that means that we'll be able to lift Council's performance against delivering on the framework. One of the other key considerations was the ability to collect data across the Council group. So a few of our measures actually cover the Council group, so it is important that we can actually collect the data. The LTP measures as well, so they have been included in the framework. Again, there's a few measures, and the LTP measures are some of them as well, that we want to refine and look to amend in the next LTP cycle. In terms of our reporting framework for Kia ora Tāmaki Makaurau, it will be a 6-monthly reporting cycle. Next slide, please. So this outlines the roadmap that we will be taking and also the journey that we've been through to date. So we have the development of the measures. We've got the final draft with you today. And then we'll be seeking the approval of PACE committee today. Then we've got the reporting cycle happening that's already commenced. And then we've got a review, so we're calling it the phase 2 review that will start in March 2022. It's actually started now because one of the processes that we will be using is a intervention logic approach. So that's being developed in terms of what that might look like, and then we'll be able to come back at the review conclusion, which will be early in 2022, with some progress reports and updates and a way forward. Thank you. So in terms of implementing Kia ora Tamaki Makaurau, we do have some really vital and key levers. We have the Māori Outcomes Fund, so that's set out in the LTP, that's 150 million. We have the Māori Outcomes Steering Group, so this is a group that sits across the council group, includes the board secretariat members as well. We have Māori responsiveness plans. One of our key levers is actually that we're looking for directorate and CCO plans before we had department and unit plans. We have also the CCO statements of intents, and a big lever has been the C's performance objective and divisional scorecards. So again, they're lifting the performance around people having to actually take notice and give effect to Kia ora Tamaki Makaurau. In terms of our next steps, we're initiating the data collection for the measures, so that's currently underway. We're wanting to engage more with our local boards to make sure through their local plans and any support that they might need to help them deliver on the Kia ora Tamaki Makaurau outcomes. The board has also recently released their schedule of issues of significance. So we'll be working with the board to see how we might align our two documents. And we also have the Maori Outcomes Annual Report as well. So the latest version is currently being drafted, and that's a good way of capturing and sharing all the great outcomes that the council group is delivering. So in terms of the reporting framework, we do have a number of areas where the Māori outcomes portfolio as a whole is reported to. So we've got ELT, we have the CE's Forum, Finance and Performance, Audit and Risk, the IMSB and Joint Governing Body Hui, and obviously PACE as well. So there are quite a few areas where the reporting goes into. This is obviously not capturing some of our external reporting as well. We want to make sure that we're actually sharing the stories and getting the input from mana whenua and mātua waka as part of this bigger framework. So as I mentioned before, we do have a number of group-wide measures. So again, the framework is a starting point in terms of how we work across the council group to deliver on Māori outcomes and using what resourcing we have to best effect for delivering on the framework. So I won't run through them here, but you'll see them set out in the PowerPoint. The group-wide measures are important to align our effort and present the outcome in a single view. And I've mentioned about phase 2. So the purpose of phase 2 is to, the measures reflect the mana outcomes and mahi objectives. They lift performance through improved monitoring and reporting, and they evaluate the council group performance. And we will do this by integrating intervention logic, methodology, and growing evidence base, including indicators. So that's been some of the feedback that we have received is about the need to include indicators within the framework. Engaging with key partners and internal stakeholders. There has been engagement to date in the development of the framework, so we just want to lift that again. And developing and refreshing our work programs across the council group in terms of how we actually deliver against this. So that's a conclusion of the PowerPoint.
Ka pai, short and sweet. Ka pai. Open up for Pātai, Councillor Fletcher. And I'm going to then go to Councillor Dalton and then Member Kake, Matua Kake.
Kia ora.
Kia ora nā.
Thank you for the presentation. And I took on board the points you made in terms of the statement of intent from CCOs. Can you give me a little more insight into how you interrelate with Comet as a CCO?
So that is one of the partners that we do want to touch base with. We have concentrated most of our engagement with the substantive CCOs. So as part of phase 2, we will be touching base with Comet.
Okay, thank you for that. But, Mr. Chairman, I just want to foreshadow, I was actually going to raise it in the earlier item. But it's one of those areas where some of it sits in the CCO committee with Councillor Dalton and the Deputy Mayor, and some sits here. But I just want a clearer line of accountability in and around our CCOs so I can actually see how it's all interacting and we have a bit more clarity about that. Thank you.
So just on that, Councillor Fletcher, let's do some work around that with the CCO, and then we can at least get the definition that needs to be done after I saw Matua Kake shaking his head as an acknowledgement. So look, let's do some work with that Councillor Dalton and with also the Deputy Mayor and myself and Councillor Casey, so thank you. Now move to yourself, Councillor Dalton.
Tēnā koe, Chair. I have two questions. Tēnā koutou katoa, and thank you so much for all of the mahi that has gone into this. I know it's been a huge amount of work and it's going to be good. I have two questions. One is, one of the best ways to ensure that we're achieving our outcomes is to engage with Maori before we develop our plans, policy, strategies. Is there a place within Kia ora Tamaki Makaurau that we will see consultation with mana whenua and mātua waka before we develop our annual plans and our long-term plans?
Kia ora, Councillor Dalton. Yes, absolutely. We're developing an updated approach to that as we speak, and that's based on more of an engagement approach and the type of approaches that Māori are more comfortable with.
Thank you, that's really good to hear. So in terms of measuring those outcomes, do we have that model right? We measure in percentages, we measure in counting forms and feedback. Can we be taking more of a tikanga Māori approach to how we measure the quality of feedback that we are getting so we get a true sense of the level of engagement? Because when we just go through counting feedback forms and end up with a percentage, it looks like we're failing dismally, and I just wonder if actually some of our engagement is really rich in informing our work that we do.
Again, that's another piece we're looking at. I think it's not about failing dismally. I think it's about asking the right questions. So we are working with CEI to ensure that we're actually asking questions to get the results that we're looking for. So we are working with them at the moment. I'll let Lou talk more into that, given she'll be doing that piece of work.
Yeah, so just on that note, it has been identified that especially our LTP measures could focus on different questions or outcomes that we're seeking to align Kia ora Tamaki Makaurau to. And it is the LTP measure that we currently have in place around Māori decision-making role and how their perspective on that has been identified as one of our top priorities for the Phase 2 review. So we will be bringing that back to the table.
Thank you so much.
Kia ora. Matua.
Kia ora, so tūtahi e te toko toru, tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou. First of all, I acknowledge Councillor Dalton and Councillor Fletcher's comments, bang on point today. Absolutely agree with what you're saying in terms of leaning into the CCOs. And I think I heard that, I saw up on the screen there you had the CCOs all be looked at, but I'm interested, like you, did I read up there before that you had our CEOs, or council CEOs' performance appraisal or performance will be critiqued? I'd like to see that in the CEOs as well, as opposed to just making it a CCO objective or performance objective. So if it's good for our council CEO, I think it should be good for the CCOs. That's my point. So that's the question: is can that be extended to them? And you answered my other question in terms of the reporting frequency. So you're saying 6 monthly in terms of critiquing this, and just to support Councillor Dalton's line of questioning in terms of measuring tika, puno and aroha is always a good measure. Is it tika, is it puno, and does it have aroha for our Māori community? If it doesn't, start again. Start again. Ka pai? And we measure distance and a tikanga way through distance travelled off the distance travelled. Ka pai. So just if you could answer the question around the CEO performance appraisals, I'd be appreciate it.
So we would be really keen to see that approach taken with the C's performance objective across the CCOs as well. We do have a regular hui with the C's forum, which includes it's our Auckland Council CE and the CEs of CCOs. So that is going to be one of our main avenues to see whether we can actually get something in place around that.
Ka pai. No more pātai, that's even better. But just to our kaimahi to our staff, just to let you know why we ask our whānau, our presenters to step back before we do the comments, because the comments is not directed at our staff who's there. It's for us to end up debating, so then nobody will end up getting in the crossfire, think it is about them. So that's the reason we ask our staff, our kaimahi, to step back. Before you do, Luann, I mihi to you and congratulations on the acting role that you now have. So look, I'm mihi ki a koe. Richard, is there any comments before I open it up for the committee? Is there any comments from you before I open up to the committee for comments? No? Ngā mihi ki a koutou katoa. Kia ora nā. So just comments. I will, and I'll leave the last I'll leave the last comment to Councillor Dalton, and before that to Matua Kake. But I just want to acknowledge it, and I'm going to use the words that you used, Councillor Dalton, and it's the huge amount of work that has been done. And you are right, it has been a huge amount of work that's been done. For me, it's really just waiting to get this through, and then our staff can carry on with the mahi. So that's just my comment, very brief. I'm going to ask and go around this way. If there's any, if not, I'm just going to leave it to Matua Kake and then Councillor Dalton to finish. No, so Matua Kake, if you got any comments, if not, I'll just hand it straight to Councillor Dalton, and then I'll put the recommendation that you and Councillor Dalton have moved in second.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Just to, I see it as an awesome opportunity really to shift the dial from intergenerational welfare dependency to intergenerational welfare prosperity and privilege, and through outcomes that go beyond just economic, just beyond hauora or health. It's outcomes for Māori. So for me, this is a great opportunity to shift that dial from that welfare dependency to, why can't Māori have privilege? That's what I'm looking for in terms of the measures going forward. Thank you.
Ka pai. Councillor Dalton to close.
Kia ora, Chair. Thank you. Chair, I'm not tangata whenua, but my ancestry places me firmly as tangata tiriti, and so I take my responsibility to being a treaty partner as a priority for my mahi here at Council. Kia ora Tamaki Makaurau is going to provide a mechanism to progress and measure our outcomes that we can deliver for Māori, and I'm really excited that I'm here as we approve this framework to be able to take us forward alongside our CCOs, alongside mana whenua and mātua waka. And I guess regrettably last year, I think it was last year, if it was not the beginning of this year, outcomes for Māori was added as one of the top 10 risks at audit and risk in their risk register. But I'm confident that the framework that we have here and our ability to measure outcomes, as long as we're measuring them appropriately, correctly, will remove that from the risk register. So I'd just like to congratulate Ngā Mātarai and everyone that has been involved and contributed to the framework that we're approving here today. Kia ora.
Thank you for those closing comments, and I'm just going to put the recommendation. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. We're going to continue.